We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Hello, Doug.
Hey, what's going on with you?
Oh, nothing, just relaxing.
Just relaxing?
Mm-hmm.
Can I interview you on the radio right now?
Yeah, if you like.
I would like. You're on, babe. So what is going on? You've had quite an interesting life lately, right?
Yeah, I have had quite an interesting life.
Yeah? Are you, well, you start this off, because I don't know how to ask the first question. I mean, I have a picture of you on Skype, and you look like this pretty girl, and now it looks like I'm looking at a man.
It is kind of like I can trade off between the two.
Do you have multiple personality issues?
It's not actually multiple personality at all. The thing is, I just have one of those faces that I can interchange. Like, sometimes I can get around certain people, and they'll say, well, excuse me, sir. And I'll be like, what the fuck? And then I'm just like, wait a minute.
Hey,
There's something going on.
Watch the F word here, all right?
Yeah.
So,
Sorry about the language, but yeah.
Why? Are you attracted to women? Because you're not.
Yeah.
I know you're not. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Are you attracted to women?
Yeah.
Are you sexually attracted to women?
Yeah.
More than guys?
Probably guys a little bit more, but that's like, it's like fading. I don't know.
So what's the difference? What's the difference here between being openly bisexual and being transgender? Because you told me you were a transgender. I don't know what that means. I don't have the degree on that.
Transgender is where you're in the sex of what you were born with, but you identify with the opposite sex.
But that's But you only identify with the opposite sex sometimes, right?
Only sometimes. Other times I can switch it off. But like I said, there are times that it's just who I am. I tend to be the very dominant, almost masculine individual, and I have a hard time going between being really feminine because of the fact that I don't find myself in the feminine at all.
Okay.
I've had that trouble since I was in high school, identifying with the feminine females because of the fact that it was just not me.
But you are you are just a smidge more attracted to guys, right?
Yeah.
So one time you made this statement, and I would love to get your comment, and then I want to go back to the beginning. But first, if you don't mind, reply to this statement. You told me in a text about a week or two ago that you have no destiny with a man. Explain to me what's going on with that.
Well, with this destiny thing is I feel that after what happened with me and Richard, I don't feel like my destiny is to be with the guy any longer because I don't have that push to, or that desire. And Richard had this desire that I be pregnant within our first 2 years of marriage. And now I'm just like, well, it's no longer there. The push is no longer there. The desire to have children is no longer there. So why am I wasting, wasting time trying to put back together an emotional baggage, which is him, and I keep running into the same personality in the mail that I can't seem to get rid of them. Like, they keep coming and coming, and I don't want that personality.
You're talking about your personality is something you don't want to have?
No, it's when it comes to Richard's personality, a lot more of those show up and tend to try to overpower me. Like, they try to push their weight around.
You're saying Richard and people like him, right?
Right.
Well, you're a small girl, and you don't seem dominant or masculine to me. You never have. You've actually seemed very feminine and petite, and I mean, you did the thing with flowers, and I never would have guessed that you wanted to identify as a male. So, is it a big surprise that
a lot of people tend to think that I have a lot of trouble identifying as female, and statement has been made that there's no way I'm not going to say the word, but there's no way that I would ever be able to identify as female. Like, I am not feminine enough. I am not what culture calls female.
Well, why did you really stop and consider what other people thought? Like, because that seems to be a theme with you, that other people's thoughts are so important when you know the difference, right? You know they're not. You know it's all about you.
I don't try to take people's thoughts and things, but what they do say does tend to influence people just a little bit. But I usually don't let other people influence me, and I've actually gotten to the point in my life that if people are that prejudiced against me and that dead set on defining me as a label, then, I'm going to do what makes me happy. And what makes me happy is not identifying with that culture and, in a way, making fun of the male population like Richard that tend to think that the macho attitude is what wins you a girl in the end, and that's not what wins a girl. Too many guys act macho, and then it gets the guy, in a lot of trouble, actually. Because what happens is he comes over into the girl's side, where all the feminine emotion nonsense going on, and as soon as he goes female, the female switches over to masculine. And I just don't want to identify with having to make that switch over to be like, get back over on your side of the fence, and I'll get back over on mine and stop, switching on me. And I can't stand switchers. So
I think I lost you, to be honest. All right, so take me back to the beginning. You were born where, young lady?
I was born in southern Ohio.
Right. I forgot that you're right here. You're right here at home.
Yes.
I completely forgot you were from Cincinnati. Can I say that? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a big town. You won't be tracked down. Okay, so you were born and raised here, but you never grew up with your maternal parents, right?
Right.
And why is that? Tell me the story.
All right, I'll start from the beginning. My family is the Appalachian, very poor family. So that people can understand what the Appalachian culture is like. Appalachians are not your middle class. They're very low class.
Are you saying your parents are too poor to keep you, so they put you up for adoption?
No. But I'll get to that in a minute. Okay. I'm just putting background in so that you understand where this all is going to come in. But yeah, the family was extremely poor, okay, Mom gets married, and she has the first 3 kids. These are before me and Scott and Trish ever came along. The first 3 get taken out of the home, and after her husband did, because her husband turned into, well, he was an abuser. So the kids, from what I was told, were abused and were removed. He was in jail for 10 years for whatever he did to those kids and her.
When you say those kids, you're talking about your brothers and sisters before you, right?
Right.
Okay, so there was a violent home, and they were in the adoption system as well, right?
Yes.
What number are you? Are you like the 4th child then, or what?
And I'm the last.
Well, what number is that? 10?
6.
So you're the 6th one. Did any of your brothers and sisters, maternal brothers and sisters, ever live at home with your mom, with your maternal mother?
Well, when it came to after he got out of prison, she got pregnant with Trisha, and then Scott and Trisha came along, and they were the 2 older ones that I knew, and they only lived with my mom until the time of my birth and my molestation.
Until the time of your birth and molestation. You make it sound like they happened in the same day.
They probably happened pretty close together. From what I have been told, that
so you were sexually abused.
I was still little.
Who sexually abused you?
Her husband.
Which is not your father?
Not my father.
Okay. So you had to go and live with the parents you have now, or with someone else? Because you had a foster mother that died, right?
I went directly into the system of, the adoption system. And actually, I was one of the rescue children that, I did tell you about my foster parents, right?
I thought you had 2 foster families. Didn't one of your foster mothers pass away this year?
Yeah, my foster mother passed away this year of cancer.
Is that the first one?
That is the first and only foster home I was ever in, and they took me in as soon as I went into the system.
So did you live there your whole life until you turned 18?
No, I was only there until the point that the Fredericks actually met me the first time in their home. The Fredericks were friends with my foster parents.
And that's the people you live with now, are the Fredericks?
Yes.
So you met the Fredericks because they were friends of your foster family?
Yes.
And when did you move in with them?
They wanted to adopt me.
So you lived in 2 adoption homes?
No, I only lived in 1.
And then you moved in with the Fredericks, right?
I moved in with the Fredericks. And I was still maybe a little shy of 1 year old.
I'm sorry, I was opening snacks here. I didn't hear you. You were what?
I was a little shy of 1 year old.
When what? When you were abused?
When I was adopted.
By the first family, right?
By the Fredericks. I was adopted. Foster home was not an adoption home. It was just, it was there as a nurturing home to help that baby, get back its health. With the problems that had arisen in the biological home, I was malnutritioned, and I was not like a normal baby. Normal babies cry when they're hungry. They cry when they get hurt in some way. I had no responses whatsoever. My crying did not come on. Like, if I was hungry, I'd sit there and smile at you and be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. well, it wasn't really fun. I was hungry, but I didn't know how to tell because of the fact that the abuse had been so bad. So the Fredericks had a lot of work. They had to get my health back.
So wait a
and
minute,
they're
I'm confused.
Where are you confused?
Who died this year? Someone named Fredericks?
No, my foster mother named Linda Cooper.
So, Miss Cooper, how long was you in the care of Miss Cooper?
It didn't seem like it was very long from what I was told.
So
like
that's
it might have been
that's
few
when you were a
months.
baby.
It could have been a few months because I was only shy of my year birthday when they adopted me. So I don't know.
The Fredericks, who you live with now, they've had you since you were like a toddler, right?
Right.
Okay, now I understand. So
yeah,
while you were with the Fredericks, you were diagnosed with autism, right?
the autism only came on when I reached my teens. It doesn't rear its face when you're a child very easily.
Well, sometimes it does.
Oh, sometimes it does, and sometimes nobody noticed. I was born back in '86, and they did turn the knob one more click, and they would have found it. You know, they would have found it when I was little. They might have been able to stop it from producing. You know, when I got older and got real bad. But they didn't catch it at a young age, and so I was constantly going through a lot of things that were not normal for a child to go through.
Like what?
Like the constant, I was, a very bubbly child until I reached the age of 7. Then my body really started to take on social oddities. I couldn't be in groups and actually take in all the conversation that was going on. I would try to listen, but it was very hard. I'd leave the group because I just couldn't do it. Another thing was that...
Did you get really bad grades in school before you were diagnosed?
Before I was diagnosed, I was not one of those people that would socially copy parents. I couldn't.
Did you get bad grades in school before you were diagnosed?
I got some pretty bad grades because I couldn't concentrate.
Right.
Okay. So pretty much what just happened as a youngster was I didn't talk, I didn't interact, I was pretty quiet. I wouldn't even cry. So, that's another of those social hurdles that should have been going. But when I was 7 years old, and I remember this, my dad was shooting off fireworks in the backyard, and I was hiding.
Because it scared
you.
My
cousin couldn't find me, and my mom couldn't find me. And I was literally curled up in a ball, hiding, plugging my ears.
Because you were scared, right?
Right.
Is that when you knew you were different?
Yeah, I knew when I was different. Because that was not usually kids won't, a normal kid will not find that sensitive. But my ears were so sensitive, I couldn't. I couldn't respond to it properly.
Right. So tell me.
So that was one time that I wasn't a normal kid. Another time that I thought I was a little odd was I am a bank of useless information, and I tend to take everything that I see, hear, and experience and just store it. I used to be able to store dates, names, of all information that I was being given, like in history class, while I aced my history class. because I was really good with dates. If I didn't think too hard, I could do math really well. But if I was thinking too hard, I was making it too complicated, I would lose my concentration, and not do well. So, yeah, my friends usually call me a bank of useless information because you can ask me something that somebody wouldn't know, and I know it. So because I'm just a very curious person.
Now, when did you started seeing doctors and get diagnosed?
I was around 17. I was diagnosed with the Asperger's syndrome. And
what was that like? Did you have to take tests and a bunch of bull crap, or what?
It was a lot of testing, mostly stuff that had to do with social norms. There were things like pattern stuff I did really well at, but when it got into like social idioms, usually the blank would come over my eyes. I'd be like, "What are you talking about? Like, what? This is like." My brain was too logical in its thinking to accept an idiom. Idioms are for people that don't think logically, but think abstractly. And I wasn't an abstract thinker. I was a very logical thinker, very organized. I tend to do a lot less talking and a lot more listening. And that's where I think the Asperger's syndrome, along with, the type of autism I have, which is Asperger's syndrome, just makes that very awkward in, social conversation, just to be able to understand everybody. I don't know what else I could say on that. It's kind of a...
So how did you feel during all that testing? Was it scary at all?
It was exhausting. It wasn't extremely scary. It was exhausting.
Were you mad? Did you ever get mad at that?
I would get slightly mad, but when I'm mad, I don't say anything. I just kind of cross my arms and look at the floor and just be like, I'm not going to respond to this because I know what's going to happen. Because most of us don't make appropriate reactions. A lot of us make inappropriate ones, like we start shouting, we start, doing things that are not appropriate. And I knew that since I was different and I had a bad sense of temperament, because if I got frustrated, I started, carrying on and, screaming and shit. Excuse me. And it would just escalate and escalate and escalate to the point I could not think reasonably. So most of the time I just shut my mouth, and usually you could tell by my eyes that I was mad. So.
Right. But you graduated high school pretty well, right? Got your diploma and everything?
Yes. Actually, I got 4th in my class on the SAT.
So, did people consider you dumb or smart, or how do you think people looked at you? Or did you ever care?
Most of the time, I really didn't care. I didn't get involved in a lot of the social nonsense that was going on in high school, and I'm sure you didn't either. The whole, well, you gotta act stupid to, be cool, and I was like, I'm not gonna be someone I'm not. So, I got picked on a lot, just for people call me teacher's pet because I always turn my work in on time, and I tried to, I tried once in a while to be like them, and it didn't work because it was just not who I was anyway. I tried to be popular for a year, and I'm like, I'm not acting like that either. So,
Did you-
still do my own experiments. Like, if somebody wants me to be something, I experiment to see if it actually works or not with me. You know, if it doesn't work, I don't adopt it.
If someone wants you to be what?
Like, if somebody wanted me to be popular and, you know, the pretty girl in school, I was like, one year I did try that. I was like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to see if it's going to work with me. And I found out, nope, not going to work. I can't do it.
Well, how
'cause
do you try to be popular?
Yes, I have tried to be popular.
How? How do you try to be popular? How does someone try to be popular?
Well, trying to be popular, you really have to pick the right guy. He has to be attractive. He has to be, you know, the guy everyone talks about. You know, you have to.
So what did you do?
constantly-
What did you do to be popular?
Well, since I was a dancer, you know, ballet. I did ballet classes. I won my popularity by dancing. And when I did that, you know, more people paid attention to me. And since there was a girl that did dance too that was popular, I kind of got into her clique.
Did you have a
And
boyfriend in high school?
What?
Did you have a boyfriend at all in high school?
I had a boyfriend. I actually dated. You know, he was handsome. He was a nice guy. Smart. You know, the guy that you would find. You know, some of the popular guys see. And so we dated for a while. But with me, I am one of those people, if I don't like what's going on with me mentally, I will change. Like, really fast change. And when he noticed that I couldn't put on that I was popular, we broke up. And
He broke up with you or what?
And he broke up with me.
Because you were changing and acting weird, right?
Right. And he said, I can't be around somebody who acts like a boy. And I turned into a tomboy.
Were you ever attracted to girls in high school?
I tried to refuse that, but the only thing is, it only got stronger. The more I fought it, I noticed where my eyes were going. And I was like, no, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to go out with guys. I'm going to stop this nonsense. And because, yeah, I figured that. And I just decided, well, if I can at least try to force this, because my parents are, you know, the older generation, I don't necessarily want to get, you know, the older generation all wound up. And so I try to be I try to be someone that everyone semi-liked but semi-hated.
Let me ask you this.
So,
If in high school, what would your parents have done if you told them that you were attracted to girls?
I probably got lectured like I usually was. I was lectured for a lot of stuff, like, you know, just the type of guys I went out with, I got lectured like constantly, you know. I'd go out with some guy that was a Boy Scout, or I'd go out with someone who wasn't, you know, necessarily the popular cool guy, and it was just like, why does the guy have to be cool and popular to be my boyfriend, or the other way around? And why would a girl and that necessarily need to be popular? And, you know, there are plenty of girls that are attractive that aren't popular. But in high school, my first exposure, and I think my first time I really started questioning my sexuality, was after the girl that had been the dancer who I had been in a clique with kissed me, and I kind of got mad.
All right, so where was you at when that happened? At school?
No, we were at the dance studio.
So you were at the dance studio and you were practicing, right?
Right.
Was anyone else in the room?
Her friend, and her friend teased me to death.
So, like, what was the conversation?
Right.
How did practicing dancing lead to a kiss?
Well, we had just come out of practice, and we were in the changing room, getting back into our, street clothes and everything. And
Right.
It was just like we were having a conversation, remember stuff, don't go the wrong direction, or don't do this, or don't do that. And she got too close and invaded my space and, kissed me, and then her friends started torturing me to death.
Wait a minute. Did she kiss you because she liked you or because she was making fun of you? And why did she kiss you? Was it to tease you?
I don't understand why she kissed me. To this day, I don't know why. Either she was trying to humiliate me or she was attracted. I still cannot figure out what her body language was.
So it made you feel violated, right? You were mad?
Yeah.
Did you later on, did you like that in a way, or?
Later on, I did, and I punished myself for that, again, because of the fact that I was raised into a conservative family that didn't necessarily like, that kind of stuff.
Did you guys go to church and stuff your whole life?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
So you felt kind of like trapped, right? Because you were questioning your sexuality, you may or may not be attracted to women, and you feel trapped and you don't know who to tell, right?
Right.
And you don't want to get in trouble, and you don't want to upset your parents, right?
Yeah, right.
So do you start pretending to be normal and try to be a girl? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I tried to pretend to be, a normal girl. And for a while, I could trick myself.
For a while, what?
For a while, I could trick myself and say, yeah, I'm a girl, and, I'm great. I do all these girly things. I'm sure that they'll still believe it. But my classmates didn't quite believe my little hoax.
So people could see it, huh? They thought you were kind of butchy? Or what?
Yeah, they were just like, you're not being yourself. You're just being what you think is appropriate. And so
were you like coming off kind of fake to them, you think?
I think I was coming off a little fake. But when I did become more of who I was really supposed to be, actually my senior year, I think I finally dropped the whole female mantra crap. Excuse my language. Female thing. I finally did drop it. Just dress, comfortably, because winters in Ohio are pretty uncomfortable. And I just finally said, okay, I'm just going to dress conservatively. I'm not going to do any jeans no more. I'm going to, I'm going to wear jeans with fit.
You were getting tired of dressing up like a girl because you didn't feel pretty like a girl, right?
Right.
All right, so take me to this when you met Richard. Take me there.
All right. I was 21 years old in college. That was about the time that my disabilities really kicked in full throttle. I was used to being babied all through high school because I was not put in what you would say normal classes. I was put in standard classes because I was not, the normal kid. I had disabilities. So I was in those classes. So there was no structure. There was a lot of goofing around because there were kids with ADHD, you know, disabilities like me, physical disabilities,
Right,
all kinds
so
of, you know, things.
there was a lot of different
So it
people
was
in
a
college, right?
session. Yeah, it was a big, big switch from high school to college. It was such a big jump, and I was not ready and not mature enough to make the jump because it was like falling off of, you know, falling off of something, and there's a small drop, but it's not a gigantic drop. But I still fell and broke something. You know, I didn't save myself at the bottom. I crashed. And when I crashed, Richard was the first person that my insecure self fell right into. You know,
where did you meet him?
I met him on MySpace, and I was talking to him on MySpace.
Did he message you first, or did you reach out to him? What happened?
Well, he is the one that found me on my MySpace account. I one day got on my MySpace account. I don't know what. Oh, I know why I was on it. I was skipping class, and because my depression had really kicked in at the time.
You said you were skipping class?
Pardon me?
Did you say you were skipping class that day?
Yes, I was skipping class that day because my depression hit real bad. Because I had been in mania the entire morning, and I dropped.
You were in what?
I was manic depressive.
So that was a very bad day.
I was manic early on, and I finally dropped out of it and hit my depression real hard. And so, when I was in depression, I couldn't go to my classes very easily.
Right, so you got on MySpace that day, and what did his message say to you, if you can remember?
His message was, well, I've never come across somebody with the self-care attitude about their disability, and yet they'll tell you straight up what's wrong with them. And I'm kind of intrigued by you, and the whole entire conversation started.
So,
and it went on. It went on my entire class period, and I really never went to class. So
you did you start to like him? I mean, you realized he was much older than you, right? How old was he at that time?
He was 65 at the time, but he passed himself off at 42.
He told you he was 42?
He told me he was 42 years old.
So you thought he was 42, and you were what, 21?
21, yeah.
So that didn't bother you at all that he was supposedly 42 and whatever?
At 21, no. It didn't bother me. Now at 27, it does.
So at 21, I mean, did you start to like think about, well, maybe this guy can take care of me, or maybe this guy, did you have like a sugar daddy thing going on, or what happened?
I was thinking, well, this guy can take care of me, and he seems like he's not going to be like my parents. Yeah, Mom, I will. And he decided that he needed to get me away from my parents. He thought my parents were damaging me, and because the thing was, the school became my parents.
When did you find out his real age?
I found out his real age 3 weeks, or was it 4? It was about 3 or 4 weeks before we decided that it was time for me to leave my parents' home.
Tell me about those conversations. Was he like trying to convince you to run away with him, basically?
Pretty much, yes.
Where did he live? Where did you guys live together?
We lived in Pine Knot, Kentucky, which is in southern Kentucky, right on the border with Tennessee.
So he was like, okay, your parents are damaging you, And then what? He was going to come get you in the middle of the night or what?
He actually said he was going to come get me from the college itself.
What about school?
And
He didn't care about your school?
he didn't care about my school. I was to the point I didn't even care either.
You were having a really rough time, and you thought this guy could, like, really help your life be better. Like, he would take care of you and help your disabilities as well, right?
Right.
So, was you, and I asked you this before, but I'll ask you again, was you physically attracted to him?
Physically attracted? No.
But you gave him physical attention, right?
I gave him physical attention, but only on his prodding.
Only what?
Only when he prodded for it. I didn't touch him otherwise.
All right, so, did you, like, pack your stuff up and you left your dorm room and then got in his vehicle?
Actually, I was at school, and I lived at home at the time, so there was no, like, dorm room or anything. I was living at home, going to school. I pretty much just dropped everything. You know, I unenrolled myself in school. I did, I did a lot of stuff that I kind of regret now, but at the time I could understand why I did it.
All right,
But
so
I couldn't
I'm sorry.
tell anyone I was hurting. I couldn't tell anyone I was hurting because no one would listen to me.
But Richard
So
would,
this
right?
is what?
Richard listened, right?
Right, he listened.
Was he aggressive with you, like, sexually in the very beginning before you ever met? Was he, like, coming on to you or anything like that?
No, he didn't come on to me. I was walking around and...
You all right?
Yeah, it was my parents. And the dog. Yeah.
What was I going to ask you? So, did you walk out of your home and then meet him somewhere?
No, my mom took me to school, and I waited until she was gone before I walked out and walked up to his car and, just got in his car.
Wait a minute. So, was that the first time you had ever seen him in person?
Yes.
Okay, so I got to ask you a couple things. Did you think that you would never see your mom again that day?
No, I didn't think I'd ever see my mom again.
You thought you would or would never see her again?
I thought I would after she calmed down.
But you knew she would be really upset for a while.
Yeah.
Which she was,
actually,
right?
Actually, the phone messages were so hurtful. I just had nothing to do with her. She actually shot herself in the foot.
Before we get to that, and I want to get to that. What was your first thought about Richard in person when you first seen him? Were you excited? Were you relieved to be starting a new life? Was you scared? What was going through your mind? What was said?
I was like, well, I'm actually going to get away from drama. And so, I'm one of those that, I guess, in a way, I now think I took the coward's way out. I walked out on something when I should have stood my ground.
You walked out on what? School and your family?
Yeah. I think at the time I took the coward's way out because I couldn't communicate with them. I felt like I wasn't part of their family. Like it was.
So you probably felt like you were already a lot closer to Richard than you were with anybody, right? Is that true?
Yes.
So then what? He took you down to Kentucky? That was it?
Yes.
What did you have with you? Because your mom had no idea that you were about to do that, right?
Right.
So what did you have with you on your? You didn't have clothes or nothing, right?
No, I didn't have any of that. Actually, the people down there are so nice. When I first came down there, And when you were married and everything, you actually were leaving bags of clothes at our door for me.
From what? From his church or what?
No, just from the community itself. The community
Well, how did they know what was going on?
Because I was new to the community, and they noticed, because a lot of people around there spy on you, that I didn't come with any bag of clothes.
So
or
it was a
anything
very
like
small
that.
town then?
Yes, very small town.
All right, so when did he tell you he was actually 60 whatever?
He told me, I think it was a week, very short amount of time before we actually met. Of course, already not having a problem with the 42, I was just like, I just accepted it, I just went like, well, what's going to harm me, 42 or 65.
But didn't you feel betrayed or angry or what?
No, I didn't feel anything. I was just like,
So you still
it's no big deal.
So you were just you were not attracted to him physically at all?
No attraction physically.
Did you have any trouble sleeping the last night at the Fredericks, knowing that it'd be your last night there? Was you excited that day?
No. Nope, I had no problem with my sleep at all.
You were just like ready to go.
Ready to go.
All right, so how long from the time you you moved into his home right away and, right?
Right.
Was he, how was he? How was it to live with him?
At first, it was, we were fine. We got along.
Was you like snuggling on him the first day, or were you romantic, sexual, anything?
I am not a clingy person, and I do not, I don't cling to people. So I was like, once in a while I get a hug from him, or, or somebody, like we were trying to move from the trailer that he was living in before me to the house, because he wanted me to have a proper home. He didn't want me to be living in a trailer. So he was moving us over to his home.
Did you guys sleep in different rooms? Did you guys share a bed?
We shared a bed, yes.
But you didn't do nothing with him?
Didn't do nothing.
Why did you share a bed? If it was not romantic, if it was not sexual, what was the conversation that led to we need to sleep in the same bed? Why that?
Because of the fact that we were married. And
well, I didn't. How quickly did you get married? Why did he want to get married if your relationship was not romantic or not sexual?
Because of the benefits that marriage brings.
What are the benefits that marriage brings?
Well, able to the bills would be together, two people that are married, we get, you get taxes get cut.
Did you want to marry him? Or did or was it like his idea and you kind of went along with it, or what?
He talked me into it. He said the only way you're going to come live here with me is we have to be married.
Did you tell him no at first?
I didn't know what to say to him actually at first. I just kind of was like, I'll think about it. But as he kept on, and I think at 21, I wasn't socially asked to take that kind of keeping on. You're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to behave like this, you're going to have to do this.
So, I was trying to remember where where we was. You living with this guy. He but you and him had not quite gotten like you said it really wasn't that physical at first, right? It wasn't really. See, I never got that. I never got why he would want you if he didn't want to be physical with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it took me almost 5.5 years before I figured out why he wanted me.
You mean was you weren't with him for 5.5 years, was you?
I was with him for 5.5 years. I married him at 21 years of age.
Wow.
Yeah, stupid move. But,
So you moved in with him when you were 21. You left the house, but you went to college that day and left from there. And your parents didn't know that you were not coming home. How did they find out? Did you ever call them or anything?
actually, they eventually figured I wasn't there because they went to go pick me up, and my brother couldn't find me, and my parents couldn't find me, so they figured I'd probably, done something, really stupid. And so they started calling my phone, and they weren't nice, nice messages at all.
Well, how did they know to be rude? I mean, how did they know that it was your fault? They didn't assume anything other than you did something bad? They didn't... They never assumed that maybe you got lost or something happened? Nothing?
They didn't assume anything until they tried to get a hold of me, and I had an instinct not to pick up my phone, because the fact is that if I did, I would end up in the most huge emotional wreck, and then I would be,
Let me ask you, why didn't you just want to talk to them and tell them what happened?
Because of the fact that they were dead set on my education, and every single time I would try to, get like a boyfriend or girlfriend, it would turn into a war between the two of us, or 4 of us, or whatever.
Your parents don't think you should be with anybody, right? Because of your Asperger's?
Yeah.
What do they think would happen? That you would just be taken advantage of or something?
No, they don't want me to end up with more children like that.
They don't want you to have children. They said that?
Yep.
They said because you're was diagnosed with Asperger's, autism, that you shouldn't have kids. And they said that to you.
Yeah, they shouldn't raise kids.
How did that make you feel?
Rejected.
How do you think you should raise kids, or do you think maybe it would be better that you didn't?
I've had that war with myself for a long time. And sometimes I think no, and other times, I don't mind. But at my age now, I don't know. Right. I don't have an education to be able to get work that would be applicable for a family.
You don't have education for what now? To get work that would be good for a family?
Yeah.
Who said
that would...
Well, you can work many different types of jobs, and you don't need... You have a high school diploma?
I have a high school diploma.
You can get a lot of jobs with a high school diploma. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know that. But my dream job, I couldn't.
A what job?
My dream job.
So, they left nasty messages. Did you ever eventually call them back?
After a good while, after 48 hours, I did finally get up the gall to call them back.
What was Richard saying about all that?
Richard had actually asked me to do so, and when I got cussed out for what I had done, he barred me from ever talking to them again.
What'd they say to you? How'd that conversation go?
It was a nightmare. It was name calling and calling me like a retard and a whore and all kinds of things. And
your mom called you a retarded whore?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be kidding me. Is that the mom you're living with now?
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you ever go back home? Not to get too far ahead, but did she eventually apologize or anything?
She's apologized, and I also found out that Richard was not the right guy, because Richard eventually betrayed me too.
But they apologized for their stuff, or were they just wanted you to come back, or were they really sorry?
They were generally sorry, and they told me that they didn't need to react the way they did. They were panicked because they just, I think in a lot of ways, that just because they haven't ever had their own kids, we were the first, me and John were adopted, not real kids. And so, I think they reacted badly because of the fact that they didn't have, that experience with having their own child and everything. Because when you adopt kids, there are so many issues going on. Like, I had the Asperger's on top of the fact that I came from a highly, abusive household from my birth family. So, you got all those issues.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, you were 21, right?
Right.
So I'm surprised that they would freak out. I mean, you can do what you want. But anyways, so when's the first time you and him got physical with each other? I'm very interested because he's so much older than you. Remind us again how old he was at that time, that first couple weeks.
All right. I was 21 and he was 65.
And were you attracted to him physically? You said no, right?
No.
But what was going through your mind that first couple weeks?
Well, I figured out that, I felt sorry for the old man. He was, alone, just like I was alone. I was pathetically alone. I felt I needed to have somebody and feel wanted.
Did he feel more like a dad than a husband, or what?
He felt more like a dad. Dad that, I had never, had. Like, yeah, I had an adopted father, but I didn't have, like, a dad, like, something genetic to me. And I felt he was the closest thing to a genetic father. So.
Wasn't he, like, being intimate with you and stuff like that?
The intimacy was never really got serious at all. It was just, walk beside one another in a store or hang out with one another. And everybody just didn't see us as a couple. They saw father, daughter, or grandfather,
Is that how you felt? Like you felt like his daughter?
Yeah, I felt like his daughter.
So where did you sleep on the first night you were there?
He had me, just sleeping mostly in the same bed. But the thing was, I just didn't feel, a connection with him.
Did you tell him that?
I would just roll away from him and roll over and just go to sleep,
You didn't try to make love to him or nothing at first?
No.
So did he know, before he went and picked you up and everything and met you for the first time and picked you up, did he know that you were not going to be sexual with him? Or was it a surprise to him?
He thought that he was going to have, a wife that would cook and clean for him, give him one more child or two more, which, to be honest, Doug, I am very scared to do so. But that's something you can ask me later about. Because physically, my mother had trouble having me. I was reversed in her womb, so.
So that first night you're there, he says, "All right, let's go to bed." And did he ever ask you or try to get like physical with you? That's interesting to me. That just the age difference and I don't know how you would handle that, because you seen him as a father, but I think he saw you as his new young wife, right?
Right. And he did try, but I am pretty damn stubborn, and all I really have to do is turn around and just act like dead weight. You know, I'm able to ignore, and that's what I did. I just turned over, covered myself, and went to bed.
And he never did he ever force himself on you or anything?
There were 1 or 2 times he tried to pull me over towards him, and I literally had to pull myself away because I just didn't want the closeness.
Did
I didn't
you
want
say
to
anything to him?
again.
Did you say anything to him when he was doing that? When he was pulling you?
Oh, you found him. Good. All right, you better get out and get the dog. You're not. Thanks, Dad. Sorry, that was my father.
That's all
Bringing
right.
me my cat.
You all good now?
Yeah, we got the fort secured.
The fort is secured?
Yep.
So, wow, 5.5 years. I imagine. Did he propose to you after he met you, or was that something that he told you he wanted to do before he even met you?
He proposed before he ever met me.
And you said yes?
And I said yes. And I should have said, I have to see you first.
Why is that? Because you didn't like the way he looked?
Well, it wasn't about looks, Doug, as much as now that I know a lot of facts about that type of guy.
What type of guy?
Ended up seeing out of him, the abuser. You know, I'd have to see a guy and hang out with him a lot more than just a few days, you know. And we were just, we were talking over the phone constantly. But the thing was that when we got together in person, and 5.5 years is a long time, I know, but we started hating what one another was made of, you know, who one another was. You know, he would sit on his ass, not go anywhere type of person, and I was the exact opposite.
He was doing what now? He was doing what now? You started...
He would sit on his butt, watch TV, you know, stuff unhealthy food down his throat, and...
Was he a big guy? Is he a fat guy?
Yeah, he was a fat guy.
Is he like obese fat or what?
300 pounds.
So this is an old 65. How old was he? 65?
He was 65 when I married him. He was 72. He's 72 now.
So you're 21, and okay, did you ever see like a picture or video of him before you got in his car?
I only saw like pictures on MySpace of him. This is before MySpace went down.
Did he look huge in his pictures, or did he look handsome, or what?
He looked pretty big in his pictures. He actually looked unhealthy in his pictures.
So you were never once physically attracted to him, were you? Not in the whole time?
Nope, not the whole time at all.
You married the guy for security, right?
Security.
All right, so you're with him, you're sleeping on opposite side of the bed, you're not touching or intimate or nothing. And, I mean, you guys are the odd couple. You're a tiny girl. What do you weigh, like 92 pounds?
Around 110 to 100 pounds, like right in between.
So he's like 4 of you. Wow.
I'm only 5'3.5" in height.
What? Let me ask you something straight up. What the hell were you thinking?
I don't know if I was thinking at all. I really think it was all emotional. I was all going through that, you know, that 21-year-old emotional brain nonsense that girls go through.
Do you think you'll do something like that again, or what?
No. I think I'm vaccinated against it now.
Because there was another guy, and you even had a picture of him or something, I thought, on Facebook, but I'm getting ahead of myself anyway. We'll get into that. So how did he ask you to marry him? He brought it up the second time and he was serious and wanted to do it, right?
Right. And he asked me the wrong way over the phone if I'd marry him.
You mean before you met him?
Oh, yeah.
So, how long did you live with him before you were married?
48 hours.
You married him in 2 days after meeting him in person.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole plan then, right?
That was the whole plan.
Did you go to local church? Was his church involved? How did the wedding go? Or was it like a courthouse thing or what?
We did the courthouse thing.
Were you scared, nervous, confused, anything?
More or less after we said the I do's, we were both surprised. But other than that, I didn't feel too nervous. I felt maybe a little bit, but nothing that was screaming, run. So I was just...
Did you have a honeymoon at all?
Not really. We just stayed at the house mostly.
What'd this guy do? What'd this guy do for a living?
Well, he was an insurance man, and then he just stopped working. And he had this kid to raise. And the kid at the time, when I got married to him, was 14 years old.
Did you know the kid and interact with him?
Pardon me?
Is it a son or a daughter?
It was a son.
And you knew the kid?
The kid that was from a previous relationship, and it was his by another woman.
Did you know the kid? Did you talk to him and stuff? Was he hanging around the house at all?
Yeah, he was hanging around the house a lot.
Was he good? Was he good looking?
He didn't have anybody else other than me to talk to, and he really despised talking to me in the first place. So.
Well, he might have been attracted to you, right? You were closer to his age than anybody, right?
Yeah, I was closer to that kid's age.
Did you like him at all? Do you think he was cute or what? Legally you were a stepmother, but psychologically, did you have a crush or anything on him? He was... I don't know.
No.
You guys were you're a lot closer to age than you and your husband, right?
Right.
But nothing was there?
He was there.
Wow. So on the day of the night of the wedding at home, was there any sex or talk about sex or anything?
There was no talk about it. He was, he was playing, sweet guy and, flirty and all that stuff. And I was like, this is cool. He's being nice to me. And that didn't last. Believe me, it didn't last.
Tell me about that not lasting. When did you guys have sex? Let's get to the nuggets here. What happened? How long did it take for you? Didn't you say you banged him one time?
Actually, we tried to, but the thing was, as soon as he got on his back, he went limp. So, and me not having any experience with that, I was, I felt stupid. Well,
confused. You felt confused and what?
I only felt worse when he started hollering about my inexperience. And one time, I actually went into the woods to get some peace and quiet and met one of my friends in the woods. And we were talking and everything, and this friend was the same age.
Wait a minute. So, hold the phone a second here. When did that happen where you tried to have sex with him? Was that right after the wedding or what?
Yeah, that was right after.
The same night?
Yeah, that was the same night. And we both failed at that because
Because you didn't know what to do and he couldn't get hard, right? You there?
Yeah.
Is that right? You didn't know what to do and he couldn't keep it up?
Yeah.
So how'd that conversation go?
Not well. It turned actually into a shouting match. And
What was he yelling about? It wasn't your fault, was it?
no, it wasn't my fault. I had no experience.
So you got this guy, you met him 2 days ago, not what you want, but you married him, and now he's yelling at you because you're inexperienced sexually. What was going on in your mind when that was happening? Was that this?
I pretty much just told him, I'm not going to listen to this, and I went and took my bath and ignored him.
You did what?
I just turned my back and walked away and went into the bathroom and started my water up for my bath and locked the door and just did my bath. I ignored him.
Wow. What a start to a marriage, huh?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. You have quite a story, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I've got quite an attitude from it, so.
I'll be dang. Was he pounding on the bathroom door or anything like that?
No, he just shouted from the bedroom a lot, and I just
What was he saying? What was he yelling?
He was telling me how, inexperienced I was, and, he wished his, stuff wouldn't be acting up, and I said, I just didn't say anything, and he kept yelling about, my inexperience, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't...
What did he say? What did he say?
Well, he told me that I needed to get a real man to do something to me, to get me to learn something, and...
Was he being serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
So you're in the bath, taking a bath, the night of your marriage, the night you signed the papers, and he's yelling through the wall how you need to get a younger guy or whatever to teach you how to do stuff sexually.
Yeah.
What was you thinking?
I was thinking I needed to get even with his emotions and torture him, and I said he'd stop. And
so you were just you weren't scared at all? You were ready to fight? You didn't care?
I didn't care. And I was at a point in my life I really didn't give a shit.
Why was you so angry at life, though? I mean, this guy took you in, and wasn't he the answer to your prayers in a sense?
Well, in a way he was, but like I said, that first year was very, very rocky, and he decided that I needed to be taught who was in charge of the household, and I wasn't broken yet. See, I was still a little horse, and he forgot one day to, watch who I was talking to. Well, I talked to somebody my own age, and he started yelling and carrying on that day.
You talking about another guy? You talking about a guy or a girl?
It was a guy. And
how'd you meet this guy that was your age? Was it on the internet or something?
Oh no, he was in the neighborhood.
So how did you end up talking to some guy in the neighborhood? What happened? You were out taking a walk and what happened?
Well, I was a big outdoorsy, and I liked walking in the woods and looking at different plants and stuff. And I happened to walk down towards his trailer in the woods, and he was out in the woods, not doing anything except looking at some plants that he wanted to make into a, shelter, because he was outdoorsy like I was, and I know how to do that stuff.
You just walked up to him when you saw him in the woods?
Well, I didn't walk up to him. He walked up to me because I was bending over. I was looking at something, and he said, "That's interesting." I said, "Yeah, this is an interesting plant and everything." And so we just we sat down on this dead stump and we're talking,
Did you tell him you were married and everything? Did you tell him what was going on with your life?
Pretty much, we didn't talk about that. We were, having random conversation. And I'll be damned if my husband's son comes down in those woods and sees us together, just chatting and everything. And literally yanks me out of the woods, and then my husband starts cussing me out. We're talking to him.
Did the boy came down and interrupted you?
Yeah, the boy came down and interrupted us. And
so you went back home with the boy, right?
I went back home with the boy pulling me out of the woods. And
was you letting him, or was you fighting him and he was literally pulling you?
He was literally pulling me.
And you were trying to get away and you couldn't?
And get away. So
sounds like the boy was not treating you like a stepmom. He was treating you like a little sister or something.
Yeah.
Like property.
Yeah, I really think he was treating me like a sister. And if my brother had done that, my brother's wrist would have been red because I would have tugged harder.
So you got back home and he tells his old man what's going on. Richard starts yelling at you real bad. And when was this? Was this like a year after you got married or what?
This was within the first year.
Right. But you stayed with this guy for 5 years, 5.5. What happened after that first year? It was just kind of like nothing. You didn't have. He was just like a roommate, right?
I was Richard's little slave. He would say, "Come on, clean the house, you little whore," and I would, I have to put up with it,
He would tell you, "Clean the house, you little whore." Was he trying to be funny at all, or was he being rude on purpose?
He was being rude on purpose because after he took to yelling at me because of the fact that I was in the woods with somebody my own age, that we had just been chatting with, I actually took off to the guy's place to get away from Richard. Well, Richard didn't necessarily like the fact that I had taken off. And he came down and pursued to try to get me back. Well, the guy was going to take me out for a night and bring me back. Just so I could cool off, he was going to take me partying, and then I would come back. And I don't drink, so, I wouldn't be drunk by the time I got back.
So wait a minute. You took off again into the woods. You ran to this guy's trailer.
Yeah.
And you were like, "Hey, I'm having trouble." And the guy said, "Well, let's go partying."
Yep.
And you're like, "Okay."
Yep.
And your husband had no idea where you were going, right?
Yep.
But you didn't care, right? You were mad at him.
Yeah. I was raging. And yes, before we ever left, I had sex with him, and I lost my virginity to him.
You lost your what?
Yeah. Virginity to him.
Virginity.
Virginity. You
lost your virginity to this guy. Wow. Did the guy know you were married and all that deal?
Yeah.
And what was he, drunk or something?
Richard already had an alcohol habit.
No, I mean, was the guy that you gave your virginity to, was he drunk at the time?
No, sober.
So he's like, "Hey, baby, how you doing? You're having trouble with your old man? Let's have sex and go to a party."
Yep, pretty much.
And you were like, why did you want to have sex with him? Just rebellious? What?
Yeah, rebellion. I was still a little warhorse. I was going to fight.
And you fought with your giner, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I fought. And I got myself hurt, too.
How'd you get yourself hurt? Did Richard ever find out that you did that with him?
Oh, yeah, he found out.
Did he beat you up or anything?
No. He just turned into a monster after that. Every time I was, outside, he'd say, "Oh, you looking for Eddie? You're looking for Eddie? You're looking for Eddie?" And I'd say, "Fuck no, I'm not looking for Eddie. He's not here, you dumbass. I know where he is, and you don't."
So he didn't know where Eddie lived, but you could go to his house anytime if you wanted to, right?
Right.
Did you and Eddie talk on the phone or anything, like when Rick wasn't around, or?
We only had the sex at one time, and then a lot of stuff started happening, and I was the only one informed about it. Richard was never informed about it. So, yeah, I knew a lot more about Eddie's whereabouts than Richard did. Eddie actually went to jail for a drug offense, and I was just glad he was safe and away from that environment. So,
Drama.
Yeah, it was
So
drama.
over the hill and through the woods to Eddie's house we go. And that was just what, one time, or did you meet up with him a few times over those 5 years, or just that one time, or what?
Just that one time.
You didn't get pregnant or anything, did you?
Nope, I didn't conceive.
Eddie wear a condom?
Nope.
Was it like straight to the banging? Was there any foreplay? Was you attracted to Eddie, or was it just like pure rebellion, sex with anybody?
There was little foreplay, and actually, Eddie didn't break me all the way, so I actually was still technically a virgin until the second time.
You were not a virgin.
Mm.
You're not a virgin after you have sex.
No.
You mean physically you weren't all the way changed, right?
Right.
How about now? You still the same? You haven't been broke in all the way yet? Because you never had sex with Richard except for that one time that you tried it, but you never actually had sex with him, did you?
No, I never had sex with him. And
so you were married to this guy for 5.5 years, never banged him. He was treating you like you were his slave.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever when did you start getting in touch with your parents again and talking to them? How'd that go? What did Richard think about that?
Well, Richard never found out because we started getting smarter than him. My best friend hit a phone so I could talk to my parents.
Your best friend did what?
My best friend had a cell phone in her home. I could go and call my parents without any evidence of me talking.
And you would go to your best friend's house?
Yes.
But you don't drive, so was it a neighbor?
Yeah, it was. I just walked right over to our home.
So the neighbor became your best friend, which is great for you because it gave you a chance to call your folks?
Mm-hmm.
So when Richard would go away, you would go next door and call mom and dad, right?
Right.
And what was the conversation like with you and your mom and dad?
Well, we were setting up a escape plan, and we tried to keep Richard in the dark about the whole escape plan.
Let me ask you, why did he need to be in the dark? Was you afraid that he would do something?
Yes, and his son had threatened already bodily harm to me, and I wasn't going to stand around and maybe get hit or killed.
All right, so what was the game plan? How'd it work?
All right. Well, I would go over, and we would close the front door, and then I would call my parents, and I would tell them, all right, I'm starting to bring over items out the home. I would bring either clothes or important things that I needed to have, like paperwork and all that stuff. I needed to get out of the house. So I did so.
I'm sorry, I must have missed something. Your parents came to pick you up one night, or what?
No, we planned that carefully, actually.
What was you saying about items? I heard a noise. I'm ADD as all heck. What happened with items and clothes? What was all that?
I would take that over to my neighbors, and she would store them. She'd hide them in her home.
And Richard never knew you were doing that?
No.
Okay. So whenever he wasn't around, you would take stuff over there and and get it ready.
Yeah. And the last thing to get out of there was the cat. And the cat had to be smuggled wisely because cats squirm.
Well, didn't the old man start to see that your stuff was missing?
No.
He never noticed that you were moving out slowly over time?
Nope.
Why, did you have like a separate bedroom or something?
No, the thing was that I'm a lot smarter than I look, and I would slowly make it disappear from the room. Like, one day it would be there, the next day it'd be gone. Like, I'd move it to the bedroom and packed it with a few things, and then I'd move it out.
Like what? What all did you leave there with? Just your clothes or what?
It was clothes, a few DVDs, a few movies, some paper stuff, and my pet. And I didn't move anything else of that stuff.
So you had your cat there the whole time. How'd you have a cat? Did you get this cat after you moved in?
Actually, he was born there, and he was the last of the litter to survive. So I decided that I wanted a male cat, and I was going to move him out and save him from getting beaten by Richard.
So you stole the house cat? Took it with you.
That cat.
So, was it at nighttime when you left, or what?
It was actually in plain daytime. But the thing was that when we tried to do it without Richard knowing, Richard found out. And so we had to go...
Well, what happened? What do you mean?
He actually got wind of it.
How did that happen?
He spied on me enough, and he knows that I walk up and down the street in the morning hours. Well, that morning I was about to go out for my walk. Well, he figured out from the night before, when I hadn't, come home necessarily until after dark, that I was not in right spirits. I was actually growing impatient. And he knew by my bitterness that it was either his ass or mine that was going to be chewed out. And he decided he was going to interrogate me. And he interrogated me, and he pretty much pulled it out of me. And he said, no, you're not going to go for your morning walk, and I'm going to get your parents for this because you're my wife, and I'm going to have my right of my wife. And it was actually starting to tear me apart. And so, that day, after he was done doing all that crap, a social worker showed up at our doorstep, and she wanted to see me.
Why is that? How did she know? How did the social worker get a hold of anything?
Because of the fact that my parents and my best friend filed the same complaint against Richard, and I was going to be getting out of there.
Did you leave with the social worker that day?
I left with a officer.
Police officer.
A social worker actually had to call a policeman because my husband threatened the social worker's life.
So that was it, huh? The cop came and rescued you.
Yep.
Was he a good-looking cop? Did you flirt with him?
He's a very nice cop.
Was you crying and stuff, or what?
Yeah, he actually took me to his office, and I was already shooken up pretty bad. Because after Richard interrogated me, I was extremely emotional. Like, everything, the waterworks went crazy when I left. And
well, I'm sure they did. I mean, you had just been rescued. You're like, you're like Elizabeth Smart. I mean, you got rescued. I mean, right? Isn't that how you felt?
Yeah. And
I mean, what was going to happen? What would have happened if the social worker never came? Would you have been trapped there? Because he wouldn't have let you go anywhere, would he?
Yeah, I would have been trapped there. I would have been forbidden to go out in public ever again.
You realize how lucky you got?
Yeah.
What did you kiss your friend's butt for filing that complaint, and your parents too?
Yeah.
It sounds like you got lucky, because he could have, like, he's so much bigger than you, and I mean, I know he's old, but did he ever beat you up and stuff?
No, it was only mental abuse.
He just threatened. He just talked a lot, right?
Yes, he just talked a
But
lot.
his son got physical with you a couple of times, didn't he?
His son nearly got physical with me when I got on the computer and he wanted on.
You guys were a happy family, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like his stepmom, which is, what, 5 years older than him. Awkward. And anyways, not enough of that. So I don't even know where to go next. So you're at the police station, you're crying. And then, like, how do your parents get involved? How do you get your stuff out of your friend's house? How do you get back home? What happened?
Well, my friend, the night before I was to leave, gave all my stuff and my pet to my parents that were in a motel not far from where I was.
Now, wait a minute. So the pet was already over at the neighbor's house, and the only thing left behind was you, right?
Right.
And then Richard found out what was going on, and he wasn't going to let you go anywhere. So so the friend that lived next door or whatever was talking to your parents back and forth, right?
Right, telling what Richard was up to. And my parents skedaddled across the state line back up into Ohio, and he couldn't do anything. So,
Well, he can't do anything anyways. You're an adult. Just because you marry somebody doesn't mean you're their property.
Yeah.
He can't. No one can put their hands on you violently, not even when you're a child. So, what was anyway? So your parents, the friend told your parents to come to a nearby motel. Is that what happened?
Yes.
And after you went to the police station, then what did your parents do? Did they go get your stuff and then meet you at the police station, or what?
In the police station, I was going to be then transported up to a women's shelter for abused women. And I would stay there until my parents came down to get me.
How long was you in the shelter waiting?
I was in there for maybe an hour before they came.
Did they have your stuff with them already in their vehicle?
It was already at the house, already back.
Already back at their house?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, so was that the first, when they came to the shelter to get you, was that the first time you had seen them in 5.5 years?
Yep. Actually, it was the second time I've seen them, because I had to sneak out to make my final plans to come home.
And you saw them and then went back to Richard's house, or what?
Yeah, we didn't want to tie my best friend into my disappearance.
I mean, why would it matter? It wouldn't matter if he knew, would it? Because he can't do nothing. You can get a restraining order or whatever you want. You didn't want Richard to bother his neighbor, your friend, right?
Right.
Okay, I understand. I get you. All right, so you're at the shelter. Your parents walk in. Okay, when you met your parents the first time, where'd you meet them at? At your friend's house?
No, we went up to Somerset to mask my parents being there. We said we were going to go flower shopping, which we did.
Oh, you told Richard, okay, I'm going out with the neighbor, my friend, and he's like, okay, have fun, but you really went to meet your folks, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so when you first saw, where'd you meet him at?
Well, I went up to Somerset, and you probably don't know Somerset, Kentucky real well, but
it's not where I hang out.
It's got all these restaurants and shopping centers.
Yeah.
We went into one of the shopping centers where there's a Goodwill. We parked in front of Goodwill, and then my parents came, and it was a happy reunion. And we sat in their car and we talked, and it was me doing a lot of talking because for 5.5 years, I hadn't said what I wanted to say back then.
What'd you want to say to him?
Because I was afraid of their disappointment and their judgment. And so it was my moment to say, this is what I want. And
why was it your moment? I don't understand that. They came and rescued you, right?
actually, I asked them to help me because of the fact that I was getting tired of Richard's lying, and I was starting to see him as the liar he really was.
What do you lie about?
He constantly told me my parents didn't care for me, they didn't love me, I was the scum under their shoe. You know, yes, they made some bad choices, but so did I. I was headstrong, stubborn, Irish, Scottish person that, I was just born that way.
Stuff happens, right?
So, and I was never good about vocalizing what I really wanted. I gave everybody else what they wanted, but never made myself happy. So, it was my moment to tell my parents, look, I didn't want to go to Raymond Walters. It was not my first choice. I got really upset because you didn't let me go to my art school I wanted to go to when I was young. And I said, I will only come back if we make an agreement that I go and I do my floors, become a florist through education, and we find a second route for me too. And I decided.
Let me ask you a question. Why was it up to someone else where you lived and what you did? And why didn't you just say, look, you came and rescued me, let's get out of here, and I'm coming home? Why? You telling me if they would have said no, would you have went back and lived with Richard?
I would have not gone back to Richard.
What would you do? Go to the streets and live?
I would have found a way somehow either to go back with education somehow, or,
You didn't have a plan, right?
I didn't have a big, solid plan, but me and Sarah, through conversations with my mom privately in her home and everything, we made it evident. We needed to speak in person about this plan, because this plan had to be my plan. It had to be coming from me, not coming from somebody else giving me suggestions on how I was going to do it. This had to be my plan, my ideas, no one else's.
Right.
And Sarah, who was my friend, and it still is, she was the one that was listening to me. And when my plan finally came together and finally made sense, she said, there's your plan. Now how are you going to do it? And I decided it was time to talk to my parents. It was time to get everything organized for the escape effort. To actually be able to do my plan, I had to be away from Richard, because Richard will not let me do anything.
So you met with your parents at Goodwill, or the parking lot, and I'm just confused as to why you would tell them what to do rather than. Do you get what I'm saying at all?
In some ways I can understand you, Doug, but you have to remember that for a long time I couldn't tell people what I wanted, so I was set back in that department of being, able to say, no, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to go after, and I usually do, be the pleaser and do whatever other people wanted to do. So it wasn't them telling me necessarily what I had to do. More or less, I told them what was my plans were, and if they could help me accomplish them. And
what if they had said no, we can't help you? What would you do?
find another way, Doug.
You wouldn't have went home with him just to get out of the abuse?
I would have gotten out of the abuse eventually. A lot of people, were offering me places to stay and everything because people were starting to see the effects of what the abuse was doing to me. Like, a lot of my friends were just like, girl, you need to get out of there. Like, you have a place to stay with me, and if you want that, then, just give me a sign and I'll get you out of there. But
right.
A lot of my friends were telling me, we'll help you, but he cannot know what you're up to. And eventually, I'm glad the way it happened, and I'm out of there. But I did have friends that did offer me, places to stay or hide out. And he wouldn't be able to find me easily.
Some wild stuff, girl, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So you came up with a plan. You told your folks, this is what I want to do, and they said, okay, we can help. And then, so let me go back. So you went home or whatever. Richard got suspicious. Okay, so let's fast forward. You're at the women's shelter. Your parents show up, and your stuff's already back home. What did they have, like your old room set up and everything, or what?
Yeah, they already had everything set up in my room, and they had my pets, adjusting to the house already, and so I was pretty much all go. And when I got back to the house, it was late. I was tired, because I had just been through an emotional up and downhill, scared to death for what Richard would do if he caught me trying to leave, And the thing was that as soon as, the officer did tell me, he said, as soon as you put yourself into protective custody with me, he can't come at you.
Right.
So,
there's nothing he could have done, right?
there was nothing he could have done. So, so I felt safe. I felt I trusted this officer because he was part of the neighborhood, and he had seen some of the stuff that me and Richard had battled about. And, the whole neighborhood was starting to see what Richard was really made of. So I had more allies than Richard did. And Richard's allies were actually starting to dwindle. A lot of the people that I talked to said Richard was a scam artist. A lot of people were like, that guy's trying to play her,
He did, right? He played you hard.
Yeah, he played me hard.
When you said you were his little slave, what was a normal day for you like? Let's say like the third or fourth year. What was a typical day like for you?
Get up at 6 a.m., feed the cats, then clean the kitchen, and believe me, his house was one of the worst houses I've ever seen. My mother's house is beautiful, but the men in that house would dump everything. I'd have to go fishing around under papers and just junk all over the floor for plates that I had to wash. I actually had to pick up the house almost every entire day. I got no help.
So you were the little slave, and on top of that, he wasn't even trying to help out at all. Like, he would make messes for you all day, every day?
Yep.
And that was just... Wow.
Yeah, and then it was like, if I took a break, I was a bad girl because I wasn't doing his housework, and I'd hang out with my cats, or, I'd do things I wanted to do, and all of a sudden, I was a bad girl because I was not doing, things at housework, and then, he cut me off about 9:30 at night to do any housework,
What does that mean? He'd tell you to stop, and then what?
And then, he'd just tell me to stop and spend time with him.
Doing what?
And
Doing what with him?
watching a movie or some kind of garbage like that.
What do you mean?
I just thought at the time was garbage. I watched very little with him. If I wanted to watch something, I didn't usually like to watch a lot of, Charlie Chaplin or movies like that. I tended to stay to my Japanese stuff, and he tended to hate me for it, so I really didn't take interest in him.
So it was time at night to do stuff with him, and he would say, let's come watch TV together. Did he hold you anything?
Nope.
What did you guys, like, sit in separate places and all that?
He told me one time I would sit at his feet.
He told you to sit at his feet one time?
Hmm?
What did he say exactly? What were his words? Quote him.
He just said, sit here, and I just sat right at his feet like I was some dog or something.
What were you thinking at that time?
I was thinking, I have something better to do. And I got up, and he said, where are you going? I said, my private space. What's your problem?
Wow.
And I went and talked to, a friend from 7 years, somebody I knew really well. And this friend, not straight. And he has a big thing about gay people. And he was constantly knocking on my gay friends. And, I was not born to knock on, sexuality at all. Not raised to. And so...
Right, I get it. So he was giving you problems. Right, I get what you're saying. I can't go too far away from the story here because I got to wrap this up sometime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you came back home, back to your old room, then you just went right back into school. And what year was that? Was that last year?
Yep.
So this is like very fresh and new and wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I got to talk about two more things, okay?
Right.
And you're open, right? I appreciate your bravery. I appreciate everything. And I want to ask you about a couple of things. First of all, there was a guy, and then you tell me that he turned out to be another jerk. And then there's the second issue of your gender identity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to this guy. Okay, so was this another guy that you met online?
Yeah, this is another guy I met online.
And was the plan with him the same?
I didn't do the same thing as I did before. This time I met him in person.
How did you do that? Okay, where did you meet him at online, if you don't mind me asking?
One of those applications that's attached to Facebook.
All right, so you met him on Facebook, basically.
Yeah.
And was it kind of like the same deal as Richard, or what was the appeal with this guy? And let me ask you this. What did you want to do? Did you want to leave your family again like you did 5 years ago?
No. I wanted to try to date again.
So you were going to date him and still live at home?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's okay. Well, that's good, right?
Right.
Because I was worried about you. I thought you were going to take off again.
No.
You're not doing that. You're not doing that anymore, are you?
Nope.
Well, don't be doing that.
I actually got myself into, 5 guys liked me, and, it just turned into a war of the sexes, and I couldn't stand it.
You're talking about these guys are like online friends, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what do you mean there was 5 guys and it was a war? What's all that about? What are you talking about?
Well, they were digging into, hey, you don't have big enough boobs to be a girl. You don't have long enough hair to be a girl. And, you won't get into bed with every guy on the planet. I'm just like, Yeah, because I got some sense in my head after one screw up. You know, I'm not going to repeat it again.
But there was one guy in particular, and I think I saw him a picture of him, didn't I? Didn't you have like a picture of him on Facebook or something?
Are you talking about Israel?
I think so.
Yeah, Israel pulled the thing where he was going to be the dominant one.
Why was there a picture of him that I could see? I mean, I'm not friends with him on Facebook. I'm just friends with you. How did that even? I don't remember exactly how that was. Did you have a picture of him on like in one of your albums or what?
Yeah, I had a picture of him in one of my albums.
Why? Was this like your new boyfriend?
More or less, he was kind of a boyfriend, but he was like a close. I always thought he was like a friend and everything. But I really found out his true colors. Like,
Now wait a minute. Before you get to true colors, and I want to hear all about it. I remember you called me or something, and
I got really upset because of the fact that, you know, he actually got to the point where he was telling me, you know, that I had to be, you know, Barbie practically.
no, wait a minute. I remember talking to you, and I asked you very clearly. I said, you want a man to take care of you, and you said yes. Now, tell me about that.
I wanted a man that would take care of me and, you know, that I could feel safe in my pursuits, you know, in business and everything.
Do you still want that? Is that still? Are you still looking for that?
No.
So what's your plan now? And then we'll go back to Israel. I want to hear everything about him. But what's your thinking now? Are you going to be independent and kind of stick with your parents, or what?
I'm going to be independent, and yes, I'm going to stick with my parents. Actually, that day that you talked to me, you brought a lot of sense into my mind where I was kind of like, I don't know, I was getting antsy because I didn't necessarily know how to handle him.
Are you saying that I helped you?
Yeah.
What did I say? I don't remember. I'm curious to know.
Don't do something rash, you know.
Don't rush into it and think about it?
Yeah, think about it. And I actually spent the rest of the day after I spent it with my mom thinking about what you had said.
Did you tell your mom about this guy, Israelosis?
Yeah, I told her about Israel and everything, and she told me that I needed to rethink him. And also talked to my therapist about it, and she told me I needed to rethink everything. And I needed to find out what he was really made of. So I kind of devised a way to find out what his true colors were.
How old a fella is this Israel?
Israel's 32.
What is it with you and these older guys, huh?
I had no idea.
Actually,
you're
you're 27, right?
Yeah, I'm 27.
Well, 32 is not bad then.
No.
I thought by his picture, I thought he was like 103. I didn't know. All right, so he lives around there where you are, like you guys were going to date and still be at home and everything? You were not going to run away with him, right?
He wanted me to marry him in February after I got my divorce. And I had to devise a way to get out of it. And so that's kind of how I came up with this Jasper idea.
This what idea was it?
The Jasper idea.
Yeah, I saw that. I need to ask you who is Jasper. But anyways, go ahead.
So I devised the Jasper thing, and I start putting it together. Well, it started making me antsy and uncomfortable. And
What are you talking about? What exactly did you do, huh? What'd you do?
I started to, you know, find a way to make it look like it's truly a guy.
Now, wait a minute. He knew it was you or what?
He knew it was me.
So are you saying that you started to look like a guy to get him to go away?
Yeah.
But I thought you said that you kind of like that you want to identify as a male sometimes.
Yeah, I did. And it was, it was also part of I guess my finding out, was I comfortable?
To me, you seem like a girl. You sound like a girl. Do you feel like a man?
At times, yes.
Okay. Well, I want you to be happy and safe.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I think it's a good idea for you to be a man, but I think you have made it clear that you will live your life the way you want to, and I just care about you,
Yeah.
And you're making my ratings go way up, so. So check this out. Let me ask you. This guy wanted to get married, but you had only seen him in person like once, right?
Right.
And did you tell him yes at first? Because this was your boyfriend for a minute, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So,
And I told him that I needed time, and he wouldn't listen to me. He kept pushing it. And
did he seem like another Richard?
Yes.
And that's kind of scary, right?
Right.
Right. Well, I don't blame you.
And it set off my flags, like, within a short amount of time, the time that we were talking, it just set off, oh no, this is going to be another Richard. Oh shit, I got to get out of this. How am I going to get out of this?
All right, so you got out of this by saying, I'm a guy now, leave me alone, basically, right?
Right.
But it had a lot to do with you wanted to try to be a guy anyways, right?
Right.
I mean, wasn't that the thing?
Yeah.
All right, so I was very curious to ask, and I almost forgot to ask you, do your parents know that you sometimes identify now as a male?
My parents sort of figure that I do have some male qualities about me.
Did they say that? What was that did you ever talk to them yet about this stuff? This transgender thing?
What?
Did you and your parents have a conversation at all yet about you might be transgender or whatever?
No, we haven't had that conversation. We had the gay conversation back when I was in my teens.
You had a what conversation?
The gay conversation.
How did that go? Did you think that maybe you were a lesbian?
For a while, I thought so, and then, I went through a time of denial. And I think I stayed in denial until about, 23 years of age. And then I started, thinking about it again. And I had to do a lot of hiding of it because Richard is extremely against it. But
He actually did what?
Richard was extremely against it, and he did threaten me. You better stay straight.
Are you saying that while you were with Richard and living in his house, you and Richard talked about you might be gay?
Yeah, we talked about it, and he said that he would,
whatever.
If I ever went that way.
Okay, when's the first time in your life you thought that you might be different as far as wanting to be a male or being gay or whatever?
The first time I ever felt like a guy was when I was in junior high.
Are you sexually attracted to women? Are you a bisexual?
Bisexual, yes.
And you know that, or do you think it's a phase? Tell me what you think.
I don't think it's a phase at all. Because of the fact that when I was in my teens, I didn't go through phases. I was actually finding what was me and sticking with it. And actually, I was pretty good at it. But the only thing I could never get my fingers around was my sexuality. And I could not come to accept it at such a young age. But I was not necessarily always looking at guys. Like, you know, when it's appropriate to look at a girl and be straight, you know, that's very rare that you can just say, well, I like your dress, but I can't say anything about your physical appearance. So, like I can't say, oh, you got pretty hair, you got pretty eyes. And so I just was like, no, I'm going to stay away from that subject and hope nobody notices.
All right,
so, you know, as an adult, like, whenever I can, I do compliment my girlfriend, you know.
Now, I wanted to ask you about your girlfriend. How long have you known? What's her name? Her first name, if you don't mind.
We call her Kay.
Okay, so have you met Kay in person?
Yes.
Have you made love with her, kissed her, anything?
We kissed. We've hung out at least, I think, 2 or 3 times.
So when you and Kay are together, you're the man, she's the girl, right? Or is it two girls?
I'm the man and she's the girl.
And how does that make you feel? Free?
Free.
Well, you're brave. Well, you are brave to say, I think I want to be a man, or whatever the case may be. You know, I'm not going to advocate on either side, but I want you to be safe, but I'm just interested in what's going on. So how did you meet her?
Well, actually, she found me on Facebook, and, you know, we just hit it off, like, really easily. Like, she was, like, commenting my stuff, you know, we were
All right, let me ask you this. Did you, like, become a guy overnight, or was it like, do you do it every once in a while? Like, is that your new thing now, and you no longer want to be known as a woman anymore, or what's the deal?
Well, the only time I'm not Jasper is around my parents, but
because they don't know.
They don't know.
Are you gonna tell them?
Because they think I'm just their little girl and everything, and there's a lot of things that I actually started really slowly. And if you look into some of my photos, I actually started binding first to get my body used to doing so.
You used to do what now?
Binding.
Binding?
Mm-hmm.
Binding?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
It's where you take back your breast and you make the chest look masculine.
You actually take back your breast?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. You're somebody who says that you want to be free with who you are. Why not leave your body the way it is and just dress like a man? And it seems like a lot of work. It doesn't seem like it'd be very comfortable either. Like, that can't be good for your skin and stuff, right?
Well, when I first started binding, I was using duct tape. And I actually had the spray adhesive that I used on my skin before I put the duct tape down, so it wouldn't take my skin off.
So you're telling me you like to dress with some of your chest showing, but you want your breast tape back. You don't have large breasts.
No.
So I'm surprised that you would need to do that at all, because you've been very open about kind of being flat chested, right?
I sort of am flat chested.
Because
I'm not very big.
I'm surprised you would even need to do anything. Wasn't that one of the things that made you want to identify as a male, because you were flat chested?
Nearly flat chested. Yeah, it was one of the reasons, but also the fact that I'm not very big either. You know, some guys, yeah, they're big. Some guys are not. So,
right.
You know, but actually the worst time for me and the binding best period, because my breasts actually get a little bit bigger. But
Wow.
other than that, most of the time I just have to put a lot of layers on, and, you barely can tell.
Do you want to identify as a man and dress like a man from now on? Is that what's going to happen, or do you want to go back and forth, or what?
Right now I'm going back and forth.
Do you think that...
A lot of the time when I'm around her, I identify as Jasper, because her friends know me as Jasper.
When did the name... Does everyone know that you're a female, or do people think you're a male?
It's iffy, because a lot of people think, well, she's female, but I have what my friends say is that face to also do the male.
So sometimes they just don't know, or what?
Sometimes people just can't figure it out.
Okay, so
and
you...
I've got people where they've had to take a double take because they can't figure out how male or female.
So you're getting out of the house now. You're hanging out with Kay, right?
Right.
And you're happy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have some old man telling you to sit at his feet anymore, and I get it. Is it something you want to tell your parents about, or you just want to kind of... Because would you say that you're living a double life?
In a way, I guess I am. But in other ways, I think eventually the person that I really want to be will come out. Because I think one day I will slip and accidentally, channel Jasper without thinking, and they'll get it.
So you think it's just going to come out, and that's just going to be what happens, and you hope for the best, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't have to do much to manipulate my voice to sound like him. So.
Can I hear him? Or no?
I can't channel him right now.
You can't do what?
I can't channel him under, a little bit of stress. But I do have videos where I have taped. My voice is actually on there, and all I did was make myself sound a little more husky. But that's about it.
Now let me ask you something. I'm just curious, and I know I'm not the only one who's wondering when they hear this. Let me ask you straight up. Are you just playing around? Is this a phase, or is this really what you think you want? I mean, talk to me.
I think this is really what I want, because of the fact that I'm semi-public about it. Even though my parents don't know, I am, public about it. Jasper has gone out into the public.
I mean, you are. You're on. Have you changed your Facebook over, as far as your pictures and all that go?
Yes.
Did you make any announcement on Facebook, and did you say this is my new name or anything like that?
The only thing that I got was from my friends messaging me and saying, "Wow, you've gone to a guy. You're attractive as one, and more power to you if you can, pull it off for the rest of your life." And that was my friends. My friends, didn't need an announcement. They just saw that the pictures had changed, my name had changed, and they were just they were completely cool with it.
So I take it your parents are not on Facebook or Skype.
No, they're not on Facebook or Skype.
Let me ask you this. It's kind of an odd question. If you wanted to tell your parents what was going on, would you ever suggest that they listen to this YouTube video?
Yes.
That's powerful stuff. Well,
yeah.
How do you think they'll react? You think they'll be okay? They trust you, right?
Right.
And I'm sure they're understanding people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I would say or even think if I would just want you to be safe, I guess. But one last thing I had to ask you. I'm curious. I see a picture of Jasper, and Jasper has facial hair.
Hmm?
How?
Well, I did my homework of figuring out how to do that. And I found this type of hair that you can actually use spirit glue and put it on your face. And it's kind of a neat illusion, but it's very, very, we'll say, tedious job to do. But I enjoy like putting it on and everything because then I can see the transformation.
Is this your own body hair that you've relocated with glue?
No, this is called creep hair, and it actually matches my pubic hair.
Would you order it online or what?
Yeah, I ordered it online.
Your parents are not suspicious of these things?
No, because they can't see what I'm doing in my account.
So they're not looking at your packages that come in the mail and...
Nope.
It sounds like you might just want to tell them. That way you can be, you know, you don't want to hide. You don't want to hide all the time, right?
Right.
Do you ever lie in bed at night and think, maybe I went too far, maybe I need to go back to being Christina, or no?
No.
But you did say you're attracted to women still, or you're attracted to men still, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
So if someone was a complete stranger and they asked you, what are you, how would you tell them? Would you tell them you're transgender? Would you tell them you're bi, straight, gay? What would you say?
Transgender bi.
Well, you got an interesting story, I'll tell you. That was a 3-parter. That was over 2.5 hours we did in those 3 parts.
Wow.
That's longer than a movie. That's like longer than the Titanic movie.
Yeah, that is.
Well, I love having you on. The number that I called you with is, hang on just a second. We'll get to a couple things. The number that I called you with, 614-559-3940, is kind of the number to my show now. It lets me record and do phone interviews a lot easier. And anytime you want to stop by or call me up, do it. Okay?
Okay.
And anytime you have something to say. Now, I'm not going to listen to too many things if they're too boring. I'll be honest with you right now. You know, I have a... But, you know, I care about you, and I want to see that you're well, and I'm sure the people would love to hear your story, and it amazes me, I'll tell you that much. So, is there anything you need to plug? Do you want people to contact you or reach out to you if they're having problems, or what do you think?
I am open to mentoring people if they're going through similar issues, or they just want to have somebody to listen to them. I don't mind, spending just some time with people,
So
sharing.
if people responded to you on my show and they wanted to contact you, do you want to tell them how to do it, or do you want to not do that? It's up to you.
I would say yes. Pretty much through email.
How about Facebook? Can they just look for Jasper on my Facebook friends list?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that something you want? Is that cool? Because I can...
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Well, give me a call anytime you... What do you think if people have something they want to talk to me about? They can just call this number. Think that's a good idea?
Yeah, that's fine.
614-559-3940. I think that's my number. All right, well, it has been a pleasure. It has been a long story. I appreciate your time very much, and thank you for being so open about everything. And whenever I put you up on YouTube, I will send you those links, the episodes that feature yourself. And I also wanted to tell you, if you ever need to speak here publicly, and I don't answer, you can leave me a message. And if I think it's show worthy, I'll put it up. No problem. All the voicemails get recorded on this line. All right. You cool?
Great. All right.
You cool?
Yep, I'm cool.
You rocking?
Yeah.
What are you doing tonight? Behaving?
Behaving and getting ready for bed.
Okay.
I got a lot to clean up anyway. I've got Frosty chilling on my other bed, looking like he's going to fall asleep soon. And Liam, it's getting late for me, and I got to be up tomorrow because I've got an appointment to go to because I'm going to get my hair, cut back. So, and it's getting too bushy, so I'm like, yeah, it's got to be fixed. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Because January 10th, I have to go in for orientation for my college stuff. Because I'm doing web design as my second preference. And I start January 13th on that.
So you're holding it down, you're rocking it. Well, I'm glad that you're not slowing down. I'm glad you're moving ahead. I'm glad you're happy. Call me anytime, and we'll chat right here on Life with Doug Radio, yeah?